He almost ignored the warning. That would have been his biggest mistake. The baby reached for the wall, and the Bernese Mountain Dog stepped between them for the 11th time that week. Jonas Bertrand stood in the doorway of the nursery watching it happen, and felt the first real crack in what he had been telling himself for 11 days. That Atlas was just adjusting, that the dog would settle. That this was what large breed dogs did when they felt their space had changed. The crack was small. He closed the door and went back to bed. He almost made it to morning without acting on it. Atlas was 4 years old, a Bernese Mountain Dog of the kind that owners describe in words like gentle and steady and never a problem. He had been in the family home since Jonas and his wife Simone had brought him home at 9 weeks. A tricolour pup who had grown into 87 pounds of calm that filled doorways and warmed rooms, and never in 4 years had given them a single moment of concern. Then their daughter Lila came home from the hospital at 6 days old, and 3 weeks later something shifted in Atlas that neither of them could name. It started with the corner, the northeast corner of the nursery, where the wall met the window trim, where a cream-coloured outlet plate sat at baseboard level. Atlas would not let Lila near it. When Lila began reaching, the way 8-month-olds reach for anything, for light and texture and the general interest of the world, Atlas would position his body between the baby and that corner. Not growling, not rigid with threat, just there, pleasant, immovable. Jonas tried moving Atlas out. Atlas returned. Simone tried redirection, calling him to the other side of the room with the names of things he loved. He would go. And then, within 90 seconds, he would return to the corner. He stood between Lila and that outlet plate, the way you stand between someone you love and something you do not trust. Simone was a veterinary technician. She ran the logic carefully. There were no drafts near that corner. She checked twice. No smell she could identify. No pest activity. No visible damage to the outlet plate or the wall. She pressed her hand flat to the drywall at baseboard level and felt nothing unusual. She listened with her ear against the wall on 2 separate evenings. Silence. She told Jonas she thought it was a scent thing, that Atlas had caught an odor from outside through a gap in the windowsill, that it would pass. On the 9th day, Atlas stopped letting anyone near that corner. He had previously allowed the adults to move past him. Now he turned his body to block Jonas. When Jonas went to examine the outlet, Jonas was 87 pounds. The standoff lasted 40 seconds. Jonas stepped back first because something in the stillness of the dog felt wrong in a way he couldn't put language to. He called his neighbour, a retired electrician named Herb, who came over the following morning with a voltage tester and the specific skepticism of a man who has been asked to validate a dog's opinion. He tested the outlet. Normal. He tested the plate. Normal. He was about to leave when Atlas, who had been sitting 3 feet from him the entire time, walked to the corner, pressed his nose directly to the seam where the wall met the baseboard, and exhaled a long, slow breath directed into the gap. Then he looked at Herb and did not look away. Herb looked at the gap. He got a flashlight from his truck. He came back and lay on the floor and shone the light along the baseboard seam, and was quiet for a long time. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you are in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. He found it behind the wall. An old knob and tube wire. The house was built in 1941. Insulation long since degraded. The wire itself in contact with a joist that had shifted slightly over the decades, producing intermittent heat. Not enough to have caused a fire yet. Enough to have been building toward one for an unknown period of time. The remediation contractor who came 2 days later told them the wire had been generating localized heat in that wall cavity, likely for months. Possibly longer. Fire investigator Kevin Shales, County Fire Marshal's office, reviewed the contractor's documentation as part of a standard inquiry. He told Jonas and Simone that a wire in that condition in contact with aged wood framing is a thermal event waiting for a night with low humidity. A draft, or, simply enough, accumulated time, he said. The dog was smelling the heated air coming through the baseboard gap. Old electrical insulation breaking down produces specific volatile compounds at concentrations you and I cannot register. A dog can. He paused. He had been doing this work for 19 years. He said, "You've got a good dog. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense?" Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Simone sat with it later. In the chair, in the corner of the nursery, the opposite corner, far from where the outlet plate used to be. Now a clean patch of fresh drywall and new wiring. She thought about the 11 days. Atlas standing between Lila and the wall. Atlas returning within 90 seconds every single time they moved him. Atlas pressing his nose into the baseboard gap while Herb watched. Not a bark, not a whine, not a dramatic gesture. Just a large dog who would not leave the space between the baby and the thing he had decided she could not go near. She thought about what Herb had said before he left that second morning. The old man had stood in the doorway of the nursery for a moment, looking at Atlas sitting in the room. He said, "In 40 years, I've never been called out to check a wall because a dog wouldn't let the baby near it." He put his hat on. He said, "I think I'll be telling that story for a while. Every guardian deserves to be seen, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If these stories matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one." The nursery is repainted now, new outlets, all 3 of them, with arc fault protection. Lila crawls across the entire room, and Atlas watches from the doorway the way he always did. Calm, deliberate, certain of himself. He does not go to any corner in particular. He simply watches the room and the child in it with the same quality of attention he has always had. Jonas replays the 11th night sometimes, the baby reaching, the dog stepping between them for the 11th time, the small crack in his certainty. The almost Atlas lay in the doorway of the nursery, chin resting on the threshold, watching the room go dark. Next week, a dog who stayed awake for 7 consecutive nights, and the single moment that told the family exactly what he had been waiting for.